Cool. Morning, everyone. I just wanted to introduce you to my friend Toni here. Say hi, Toni. um, Toni and I just thought it would be really great to just do a loose women meet psychic women and just kind of chat about what we do and how we do it and just all sorts of things. So there's no script. We're just gonna see where it goes. So it could be brilliant. It could be rubbish. Who knows?
We're just going to wing it, Tracy. We're going to
Yeah,
wing
we're
it.
good at winging it. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Toni.
So where to start? Picture the scene. So I am a psychic medium, clairvoyant. I basically have all the senses. So I smell, see, taste, hear, all of it, really. And more probably that I don't even know what it's called. And I think that's been my evolution in this work is from a very young age. I was getting visions, friends, that no one else could see. Later on in my teenage years, hormones, nothing really going on there other than woohoo, party time, boys and alcohol. And in my 20s, I started getting, because I commuted in London, so I was on the tubes and buses, and it was very packed, and I started getting some very dark visions and information which I didn't like at all, so I just shut it off, and that was it. And then in my late 30s, my life changed for whatever reason, personal reasons, and I moved down by the coast, and that's when my learning really started to evolve, really. I think also because of my age, late 30s, 40s, I felt a little bit more settled, and I joined development circles. I learned to meditate without fidgeting so much, and then I was able, with speaking with mentors and teachers from various circles and various spiritualist churches as well, I started to kind of understand, I hear things. Oh, that's clairaudience. Oh, okay, so that's got a label. Oh, I've been doing that, and I didn't realize that's what that was. And so the picture started to be built for me. And I've reached a point in my life now at the age of
21.
51. No, all right, 55. I feel very comfortable with spirit. I trust them implicitly. They've led me on a path of pure magical experiences. Some of them, but you are brought back down to earth with a bump.
Yeah.
If you try, in my experience, if I've got a little bit too wayward. And I do trust spirit implicitly now. I don't ask too many questions. I don't even ask my guides' names, because at the end of the day, I was told there's no need for names. Just acknowledging our presence is all you need. And a lot of the time, they don't even present themselves in a form that we would recognize as a human form. A lot of the time, it's just a sense of knowing, or it's just a vague shape, or just an energy ball, or they can be really vivid in their presentation to me as well. So I never have an expectation. They always know what I need and not what I want. And I trust them implicitly with that. And I've asked for things, and I've been given answers that I potentially are not happy with. However, they've always been bang on.
Yeah.
So again, it's that that sense of trust is most important. With that, I trust myself. I trust my integrity. I trust that I only want energies that approach me for my highest of good, in whatever form they come. So those are the boundaries that I set. So I am a working medium as well. So I do events, do readings, I do other holistic practices as well, because once you start down this road, Tracy, as you full well know, other opportunities, other doorways open up that you would never imagine yourself traveling down. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what I find so magical about
Mm.
this pathway. It's not easy at times,
Yeah, it can be quite challenging.
very, but however, how fulfilling. I
It is
it
incredibly
ful
fulfilling.
Yeah, it fulfills my soul. So I'm going to stop rambling on now, and that's just a little bit about me and
You
my
weren't. You
journey.
definitely weren't rambling. It was all incredibly interesting, and there's loads of things in there that
Mm.
I wanted to pull at. It's interesting because our paths are quite similar, which I didn't actually realize.
Oh, yeah.
I had this as a child, and as we know, we bring our brain, at whatever age it is, to an event, which is always why I say to people when they're getting divorced, don't expect a child to play an adult's game when they don't understand the rules, okay? Because a child hasn't lived an adult's life, so they don't understand it, they don't see. You've only got to watch things like Ant and Dec's Takeaway, and they ask children to explain politicians, and you get some really funny answers.
Mm.
So I remember being about 4 years old, and I was in bed, and I must have lost a tooth because I was laying facing my wardrobes, and I felt there was a presence behind me. I was absolutely petrified and I couldn't move, which I now know is called sleep paralysis, but I didn't know that then.
Mm.
And I had quite a few things like that happen, and it freaked me right out. These days, I would say my family are muggles, but that word didn't exist. Um,
Oh, we love that word, don't we?
and so nobody understood what I was going through. And I don't remember having imaginary friends, but certainly I was aware of other stuff happening in a different dimension. And I used to have some really cracking night terrors as well, which was probably me off on the astral planes and what have you. And so I shut it down too. When everyone else was reading Janet and John, I was reading books on reincarnation, spontaneous combustion, and God knows what else. But I don't know where that interest came from, other than my guides or someone in the family who'd passed over must have just been cultivating that passion for it. Because by the time I was in my teens, I was like, oh my God, it would be like really totally cool to be psychic. And then someone told me that I was psychic, and I went, well, now what? And they went, well, bog off. And I'm like, great, what do I do? So, like you, I found a development circle, and that was a massive turning point. And I always say to everybody, get in a development circle. And it's interesting how many people want to do one-to-one development, which I consider to be really difficult, and it will actually take you longer.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in a group like you, I think I sat in circle for about 10 years, and somebody asked about clairaudience. And I went, oh, I do that.
Right? I know.
But I wouldn't have known what I was looking for, what I was expecting, or anything, because,
Mm.
and I still don't know what I thought I was gonna be like if I was psychic. You know, I don't walk around going, oh, look, there's a dead person. And I don't walk around going, oh, I've
No,
got my granny and she says, don't buy that car.
no,
You know,
no.
that isn't how it is like.
Mm.
Um, and so I would always say go to circle and find out how you're wired, because I work differently to you, and
Absolutely.
we both work differently to the next person.
Mm.
It's not right or wrong, it just is. And that experience that you were talking about, where you say you kind of just know stuff and you don't know how to label it, I just
Mm.
call that clair knowing,
Mm. Yeah.
because I know it, but I don't know how I know it.
Yeah. Right. It's very it's quite interesting how it's almost, I always think of the guidance that I receive from spirit as breadcrumbs, and
Yeah.
they drop a little piece and I go, oh, okay, that's, oh, okay. And it's because I've often asked, you know, what is my purpose here? Show me. I get impatient. I'm an Aries, of course I'm impatient. And the message I always get, and this is what everyone has to kind of remember, that if we were shown where our pathway would lead us to and beyond, we would never do it. We'd be like,
Absolutely.
oh my God, no, that's too much. I could never possibly do that. So if they had shown me, I wouldn't be sitting here now.
I totally agree.
Hmm.
If I said to a client, "Oh, I'm seeing you becoming a local councillor, and when I'm seeing you being the next prime minister," they'd run a mile.
I would shut down and go, I could never. That's not who I am. No, we go on a journey to become the person we are. We evolve, and that's the whole point of this life cycle, is to elevate yourself and evolve. That's the human nature, though. That's not just a spiritual thing. That's part of the whole picture.
Yeah.
Whether you're spiritual, I think we're all spiritual beings. We just function in different ways. But we always want to learn something. We always are intrigued or interested, whether it's in butterflies or nature or physics or math. You know, we evolve, we learn, we grow, and we change.
And if you don't, you jolly well should do.
Exactly, because what are you doing? You're stagnating. You know, and we are so blessed in this time frame, in this country, to have the freedoms. And I know some people go, no, that's, but we have so many freedoms in this country. We are no longer locked up in asylums, right? We're no longer burnt at the stake or whatever it is. You know, we have more freedoms as women, as individuals, than we ever have had. And it will be a shame and a tragedy not to take advantage of those opportunities, because, you know, a lot of people still in this current day don't have that choice. They have no choice. They're told what to do, when to do it. So I think it's such a shame if people, for whatever reason, whether it's through fear, trauma, that aren't experiencing. There's so many magical things out there, you know.
And our soul is here to grow, and it's not going to grow if we're wrapped up in cotton wool and don't expose ourselves. And, you know, we've never really spoken about our backgrounds particularly, but we've both been through all sorts. You know, I've had parents that have divorced, I was adopted at birth, I've had relationships break up, I've had bereavements, I've had massive career changes. And, you know, I'm sure you've got all of that in your background. And at the time, it's painful, but it's part of why we're here. And when we come out the other side, I'm not saying that we look back and go, oh, that was so amazing, I really want to go through that pain again.
No, thank you.
But where I am at in my life now, and we're not dissimilar in age, I wouldn't change anything, even the stuff that was painful, because it's like Back to the Future, the movie. You know, if you change something, suddenly you disappear out of the photo because you're not that person anymore. And I wouldn't be where I am, and I wouldn't have what I have if I went back and changed any one thing, just even a tiny thing.
Exactly.
Could mean that I then don't have what I've got. And I'm so grateful for the people in my life and the things that I have, that I wouldn't want to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, we've all got our stories, you know, we've all got our trauma, we've all got our pain. But, you know, remember that the pain and the trauma is just another facet to life, right? We can't all be skipping in meadows with rainbows and unicorns, because we'd never appreciate that magical moment without experiencing the other side of life, which is heartache, which is emotional pain, mental torture almost as well, you know. And that does make you the person you are. It might sound a bit cliche. Oh, here we go. But you know, life is the journey. It's not a destination. There's never a destination. There's always something else.
And
so,
cliches are there for a reason. Cliches exist because they're true.
Right? Absolutely. So, you know, these old cliches or sayings are from ancient times, right? Maybe 50, 100 years, but a lot longer, hundreds of years. And there's wisdom in those words, right? Where our ancestors didn't have the opportunities and didn't have everything at their fingertips. So, you know, they saw the wisdom like fairy tales. They were, you know, they're not like Disney fairy tales. They are warnings. right, how you should live. Like Red Riding Hood, stick to the path, don't stray from that path, right? So there's always a story, there's always a meaning in these old sayings, you know.
Absolutely, they're there to help us.
Mm.
You know, in the original Cinderella, they put the shoes on until their feet bled, and they cut their toes off, and they did all sorts.
Exactly.
So they've actually been sanitized for.
Yeah, they're hideously. They are hideously raw.
Yes, very much so.
But again, there lies in the story. You know, be careful what you crave.
Yeah,
because you're gonna, you know. But it's an individual choice, isn't it, as well?
it really is, and that's where the free will comes in. So.
Yeah,
It's interesting because when I started doing this, for me, I thought learning the tarot would kind of be my destination. That's where I'm headed. And actually, it was the opposite. That was like the door opening. And once I did my tarot and I mastered that, I went and delved into Reiki because I kept getting told I was a healer. And I've come to realize that you can heal in many different ways. You don't have to be a nurse.
No.
Barmaids heal, waitresses heal, bus drivers and taxi drivers, you know, everyone sits down and tells them their woes. So there's many different ways to heal. You can put on bandages, you can talk to people, you can just listen to people, you can help them physically, mentally, or emotionally. So when I learnt my Reiki, I had no plans to teach. I had no plans to teach, full stop. But I obviously wasn't.
And here we sit.
And it's interesting because, again, from the little that I do know about the stuff that you do, again, our paths are very similar because you do the Akashic records and hypnotherapy. I do the Akashic records and hypnotherapy, but I use it very differently. We do the readings. We both teach people how to tap into their psychic skills and to work with them. But again, we teach different things in different ways. And I know that you're on your path of being a celebrant, which is fantastic. And I'm kind of going into the coaching to help people change their health. So there's a lot of parallels there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the world has shifted as we've shifted, especially since lockdown.
Yeah, so many more people I come across now are seeking a different way. You know, they're investigating different avenues. So they're feeling, I think there's a sense of more sensing rather than brain work, right? Yeah. So being pulled to something. And I always say, go for it, right? I've done things in my life that have scared the living daylights out, completely out of my comfort zone. But that's the kind of, I like to push myself. If I get too comfortable, I feel like I'm stagnating. So I do need to push my boundaries every now, not all the time, otherwise I'd be a shaky mess. But every so often I need to shake things up and change maybe my viewpoint or direction. And I have found that there's the guidance I get from spirit now has completely changed from prior to COVID. And it's more based on the physical or mental health. And the guidance coming through is really trying to drive people to take a moment to consider where they're at and to look after their health, whether that be physical, mental, and both, right? And but also there's evidence from loved ones, of course. But I do feel the guidance from spirit has, with me anyway, has shifted into a more holistic point of view with the person that sits opposite me. So that's been quite interesting as well, just being aware of that shift. It's like, oh, okay, here we go. Okay, I'm just going to go with the flow. I often envisage myself just lying back on a lilo on this lovely, calm river with a blue sky, birds singing, at peace, in my zen, and just going with the flow of that river. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes that river's like, but the majority of the time, I just feel like I'm just floating and going with the flow and not trying to analyze too much, right? And just to accept, okay, this is where I'm at right now. What can I do today that my future self is going to thank me for? Look back and I think, I'm glad I did that course, or I'm glad I didn't do that, or if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be here today. You know, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I sort of see life a bit like those computer games, not that I play them, but I have played them, where you kind of collect the poison and the key and you go, no idea what I'm going to do. And then 6 levels later, you're like, oh, I need that key and that poison from level 1. And even now, and I'm sure most people, if they're watching this, would just go like, really? I still use my estate agency knowledge, my financial services knowledge, my timeshare knowledge, my travel knowledge. I've looked after old people and I use that knowledge because everyone that I see has a different life. And somebody might need my knowledge on financial services, but someone else might need my knowledge from estate agency or from, care for the elderly. And if you'd have said that to me years ago, because it looks on my CV so eclectic, even though I did them for long periods, you'd think, well, how the hell's that going to be relevant to a psychic? But everything is relevant, even our own experiences. I might listen to a podcast and then I'll be reading for somebody and I'll get shown a picture of that podcast. And I know that I've got to give that to that person because that might be their breadcrumb. That might be the whole point, right? You need to tell them about this podcast because it's got the information they need. But more often than not, it's like, right, you need to go in that direction. So go and look at that podcast and see where it takes you. So everything that happens to us is relevant. And I think that certainly most people, I think, that come for readings don't understand how different every reader is. And I know that my readings have evolved over the years. I don't think I've ever been that reader that is very black and white and simple, like, oh yeah, your boyfriend's coming back next week. My readings have always been more, well, what is it that you need to do to change this dynamic or to break away from this dynamic? Like, this is the 10th relationship you've had that this has happened, so what is it that isn't right? Rather than, oh yeah, just sit tight and they'll ring you back up and that'll be it. I'm very much about doing the work, taking control where you can, not being a control freak, but just, don't sit and wait for the knight in shining armor to come and rescue you. Rescue yourself, And I think certainly at a psychic fair, it's very easy to pick the wrong reader for the wrong reason. Have you ever had that happen to you?
Well, the thing is, Tracy, I don't think there is ever a wrong choice, right? That's what I believe. I always say to somebody, when I'm at an event, they walk past, I say hello, and they'll start a conversation. I say, listen, you don't have to have a reading with me. Walk around, see if there's someone that you feel pulled to go and see. Even if they go and sit with that person and the information they get is a little bit jarring, that's what they needed.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But sometimes I've had the opposite. Like, they might have come to me and I've said, I don't think you're meant to be with me. What made you choose me? And they're like, well, I wanted the lady over there, but she's got a really long queue and I couldn't be bothered to wait, so I've gone to you. Or, oh, well, she was too expensive, so I've come to you, or whatever it is. And it's like, you really should have just put yourself in the queue because I don't feel that I'm going to give you what you need. And sometimes they'll come to me after they've been to someone else. And it's like, well, why did you go to them? Oh, because they didn't have a queue, or because they were only charging £5. And it's like, well, what was your reading like? I couldn't really understand anything she was saying. It's like, well, that's a lesson because that wasn't who you were meant to be with. You were drawn to me because of my tablecloth, or I reminded you of your aunt, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I do think that when people don't trust that intuition, you're right, it isn't necessarily wrong because they're getting a lesson on trusting your intuition.
Exactly.
But
whether or not they're aware of that.
well, yeah, that can be an issue.
Yeah.
because everyone's at different levels.
Hmm.
And so I love to read a book and then I love to reread it later on if it's a book that really
Hmm.
resonated with me. I can't read the Celestine prophecies now. Did you ever read that?
I did many, many years ago, and I just, again, I can't. It makes no. It just doesn't. It doesn't resonate now.
No,
Yeah.
because I'm like, what, that was 96. So I'm all that years down the line, nearly
Yeah.
30 years down the line, and I've grown.
Yeah.
And it's almost like doing one and one is two for me now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas there's
Sure.
other books that I might have struggled with at the time because they were a bit too
Mm,
high for me, or I just enjoyed them, but I'll read it again and bring a different brain to it. And
mm,
therefore, I get something different out of the book.
mm.
Um,
Yeah,
and that just shows us how we are evolving, and that comes through in our readings.
definitely, definitely. And and I think, mm, if it depends what people are seeking as well, if they're wanting to develop themselves, then I would just recommend, just going with what you feel drawn to do. Don't start being ego and looking at, I want to be like them, why can't I be like them, or that person does it this way. You are you are unique,
Yeah.
and we are all here for a reason, and some people will resonate and some people won't. So trust your instincts, right? Sit in, learn your lessons and grow from that, whether you might feel they're negative lessons, but I bet you've learned something from it, right? So I think people have just not people have just got to, they have just to decide what they want to do, just to relax a little bit and not trying to force through, um,
Mm.
not wanting that big neon sign and show me a sign and all of it. No, it doesn't work that way. The sign is listening to your own intuition and the guidance from spirit, because they will gently guide you.
Yeah.
They won't push you. They will
Mm.
gently guide you. Well, they'll push you if you need to. If
Sometimes
you
it's a hard shove.
Yeah, sometimes it is the hard shove, and the lesson there learned. But I just think if this is the work that someone's interested in doing, then go out, explore, experiment, just enjoy the journey, but always remember you're in charge. You
Absolutely.
set the boundaries, you set the limits of what you're comfortable with and what you're uncomfortable with. If you
Mm.
feel uncomfortable with something, sometimes that's our lesson. We've got to ask, why is this bubbling up to the surface? What is it I need to question about this?
Yeah.
Or sometimes you'll just have a massive reaction to someone or something, and then again that's a lesson. So I
Mm.
think or people that are just interested. I haven't been given a special Willy Wonka golden ticket, right? This isn't that kind of thing. We've all got this innate wisdom within each and every one of us. Just like some mathematicians, they just can, you know, they get their numbers, they straight away, but other people have to work at it a little bit more. And that's
Mm.
exactly what this is like. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's just you.
Absolutely. And I think that for me, that's how I view it. But there's still a huge number of people that talk about this being a gift. Well, everything is a gift, whether you're a gifted artist, sportsman, musician, whatever. But it's not a gift because we can all run. If we're being chased by a tiger, we can run.
We can all run.
Yeah. Whether you're Usain Bolt or not is a different issue.
Exactly.
But it's
Exactly.
the same with being psychic. We all have it. Like
Mm,
you said earlier on, we are all intuitive beings. We are spiritual beings having a human existence. And life is a lot easier when we understand our duality and bring it together and work with it rather than kind of shutting it in a box and treating it as a separate part of us.
mm.
And I think when I teach, I try really hard to impress on them, don't compare yourself to the other people in the room because they might get brilliant names, but you might get really weird, unexpected stuff that actually makes people go, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you said to me, oh, I've got a Toni for you in spirit, I'm like, well, you're going to have to narrow that down because I've got, or
Yeah.
John's or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, because we've got so many people over there. So a name isn't important to me. I
Mhm.
want the memories. I want the personality.
Yeah, the characteristics of that
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
And so when we work psychically, those traits will come through. So I don't often get a name for anybody, to be
Do you know,
brilliant.
interestingly, Tracy, that's exactly that. For me at the moment, people go, oh, do you know their name? And I'm like, I've just described this person from head to toe. Do you understand who this person is? Yes, then it's not for me to know who this person is, as
Yeah.
long as you accept. And I've given evidence that it can be no one other than this person, from
Yeah.
the way they walked, the way they held, the character, what they passed, how they passed, little sayings, or a name or a date. You know, names, again, spirit always say the name isn't important.
No.
You know, and I'm like, okay, all right, I'll go with that, you know. So I think, don't get hung up on the names, don't get hung up on dates, just give what you get, you know,
Absolutely.
just give
Yeah.
what you get, without interpreting, without switching your brain on. And that's what I try to really, as you do, impress, that, you know, you're no better or no worse than anybody else. Just give what you get. And then when you see people and you can feel their barriers coming down, you just get a sense, right? And they're more connected with the intuitive, and they start giving what they're getting without making up a story.
Yeah.
Along the way, and then they give that, and then the person goes, oh yeah, I can take that, and you're like, ta-da. See, you know, it's not the most difficult thing, I think, in this line of work, is taking yourself out of it.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the time I say to people, this makes no sense to me, but it's not my story, it's not for me to understand, this is just for you, you know.
Yeah.
So don't get hung up on not understanding, or trying to make, oh, I see a sunflower, so, oh, if I see a sunflower, that must mean there's a whole field of sunflowers, and, you know, and you start getting into it. No, just
Yeah.
give a sunflower. That could be so relevant. That could
Yeah.
be sunflower that was given at the funeral. That could have been a sunflower given at a wedding. That could have been a sunflower given when you moved into a new home. Someone gave you a sunflower, right? So don't leave it to your own interpretation, because basically it's none of your business.
No. No.
Right. And to be honest, Tracy, I don't want to know.
No.
I only need to know what spirit give me, and
Yeah.
that's all I need to know. I don't need to know anything else.
Yeah.
And the one thing I have to say here, Tracy, is no, I can't see into people's spirit, into their soul, right? I can't see into your darkest thoughts. I can't, you know, that's not what I'm here to do. This isn't
No.
the way I work. I work with integrity, with honesty, and I do not make anything up. And I don't look into your soul. I don't try and find information about you unless I need it. And
Yeah.
the only way I'm going to do that is with my spirit friends. And that's it. So some people would do sit opposite me, and they go, and I'm
Yeah.
like, it's fine. I'm not going to cast any magic. I'm not going to do anything that's not needed. So I can't see into this or that, because it's not necessary for me to know these things.
No. No. My head's full enough. I don't need everyone else's junk as well.
Yeah. And you get people going, oh, do you remember when you said da da da? I'm like, no, but that was only last week. And I'm like, yeah, but as soon as I give a reading, I don't. I'm like, no, don't recall. I might pick up on something, might trigger a memory,
Yeah.
one thing, but the majority, I'm like, no, it's not for me to remember.
It's coming through us. We are literally a channel, and
Mm.
like I say, some bits might stick. Like I might remember the lady I told blah 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 to,
Yeah.
but I couldn't tell you all the details. Um, and people do come to me and they're like, "Oh yeah, because in the last reading, do you remember what you told me?" I'm like, "No." Or
Mm.
they'll talk in a way that they assume I do remember.
Mm.
Like, I've seen
Mm.
100 people since you, if not more. I don't remember. Jeez, I can't tell you what I had for breakfast some days.
Yeah, tell me about it.
And people just have such a weird view of who we are and what we do. Like, I've actually had people say to me, oh, well, you could have got that off my Facebook page. And I'm like, I don't have time to look at my Facebook page. I do not have time to find yours, and I don't even know your full name. So how am I going to find your Facebook page and look at that?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think, sometimes I've had people sat in front of me where I swear to God, they think I know every single thing that has happened in their life, and they're here for half an hour. It's like, I don't have time to look at your 40 years of life when you want to know about what's coming in the next 6 months. So don't assume that I know everything. And
Yeah.
quite a lot of the time, in fact, most of the time, spirit will give me a bit of information, but like you, I've got no idea of the relevance, the context, the history. All I know is I've got to tell you about this, like the sunflower. Well, I don't know if that's the name of your company or your favorite flower
Or
or
your
any.
dog.
Yeah. Or you've got the picture, is it Monet on the wall?
Yeah.
All I know is that I need to give you that sunflower. You do what you want with it. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, and I think that's what people going for readings, I think, and I try and explain this before I give readings to people, that, you have got to do some work.
Yeah.
Right? Spirit never give everything with clarity unless you really need it, right? And the person who's having the reading has to do some work. And a lot of the time that's to trigger memories of people that have passed, just to bring them back into the reality of life, right? Because they get forgotten about and they get sad about that, right? So, but they have to do some work. It's not like me doing, being the channel, but I'm giving you information for you to hold on to, for you to consider and to think about, and to you to ask other family members. And I think a lot of the time, spirit just want family to talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
So many times, like, go and ask your mum or your sister, or your brother or whoever, just to get them talking again.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's enough of that going on. And it's quite clear with spirit that they want people to start communicating verbally rather than just this, right, on the phones or emails or whatever. And I think, and to get that remembrance back in, coming back to a simpler way.
Yeah. But see, I love the way spirit used technology to communicate. And I've had girls come to me for readings, and I've told them whatever I've told them. And then they've whipped out their phone and shown me all this stuff that's come up on Instagram. And it's all stuff that I've just given them in the reading, like I'm giving them confirmation. I've got a friend that gets communication from her son who's in spirit. The phone will just be an open line with a row of zeros, and there's nobody there, but she knows it's her son. Always happens on her birthday, the anniversary of his passing, Christmas, which is fantastic. And years ago, do you remember the guy that used to do the Slim Fast shakes, Barry Bethel?
Oh, no, not really.
You would have saw him. Anyway, his wife passed away,
Right.
and his kids were in the house, and her phone was on charge on the side. And he went out, and the phone rang, and it said it was her phone. He's like, "Oh, one of the kids needs me." So he picks up the phone, and there's nobody there. So when he got back home, he said to the kids, "What were you ringing for?" And they went, "We didn't ring you." And he went to the phone, and on her phone, there was no call in the registry. But he knew that that was her calling to just say, "I'm all right." It's like, I've arrived, I'm on the other side, it's okay.
Here I am.
So spirit are great. They'll do.
They will communicate with you in so many different ways.
And I tend to find a lot of the time, especially those that are the most grief stricken, they are least likely to get that person that they desperately want.
Absolutely, because you're so not ready. Or even
barrier.
They're just too emotional. Because I know when my mum passed, oh, I was grief. Oh, my heart. Anyway, and my mum would not come and visit me for years, right? and then she'll flit in and I'll get really emotional and she'll go again, because I'm just building up my resistance, my resilience, not resistance, my resilience to her presence. And now she comes in, and I know she's really busy on the other side anyway, but she comes in just to check on me, okay, and she's off again. But I'm not so emotionally charged with that.
Yeah.
So I think that that's another thing that I've had conversations with, where they've really wanted X, Y, and Z to come through. And I'm like, sometimes you're just not ready.
Yeah.
And
Even though you think you are.
And they don't want to stir up that meltdown again for you, especially when you're at a public event. They're very aware. And also sometimes that spirit, that energy isn't ready to come forward themselves.
Yeah.
So it's not like me going, right, number 65, your daughter's here, can you come forward? It doesn't work that way, and I never put pressure on spirit. I never say, no, I don't want you, I want so and so. Who am I to tell them who's the best person to come through? I know nothing, right?
Yeah.
They know more about me and the person sitting in front of me than I could ever possibly.
But I do find it interesting, because I mean, we really should just educate the whole world on being intuitive and how it works, because it would make our job easier. But people will come to me and they go, yeah, I don't think they're around me. And then whoever's connecting will tell me what they've been doing, like, oh, I brought a floral scent, or I've been moving the kitchen implements, or I keep moving your keys. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, I've done all of that. And I'm like, what do you want them to appear at the bed at 4 a.m.?
Which I don't even want them to appear for, a full apparition, because that would freak me. I've asked them to do it before and they've done it, and I'm like, no, too much. Go step back. Right?
Yeah.
So
I don't want that.
You would never be able to cope with that. Be careful what you
not.
ask for, right? So yeah.
And so spirit are very, very subtle. They might keep playing a piece of music. My dad plays a piece whenever I haven't spoken to my stepmother for a while, and I never hear that song any other time, and then I go, okay, I better ring. So I'm probably due to hear that song fairly
you probably will now.
Yeah. But they can be very subtle. It might just be that you keep seeing their name on the side of a lorry, or it keeps cropping up in random places, like Richard Close or Richard's meat on the side of a van, or whatever it might be. And you're like, well, that's really weird. I keep seeing Richards. And then you think, oh, that's my dad's name.
Or the best one is when you overhear someone's conversation and you're not listening, but then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, spirit, I get you. Because that conversation is like, you wanted to, okay, all right,
yeah,
I hear you. So again, it comes to that awareness, isn't it?
It is, but it's always like, look for the subtle stuff. But I think we're so busy and tunnel visioned, we miss the synchronicity. Like, people will say to me, oh, well, I want to change jobs, but I don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, well, I'm being told it's already around you. And then by the end of the reading, they're like, well, I keep coming across physiotherapists and colleges that are teaching it, and people who are going to one. I'm like, there you go then.
Yeah.
And so, you're not going to get a neon sign saying career this way, relationship over here. But you've got to put your brain on what's happening around you and go, well, why does this coincidence keep cropping up? Why do I keep seeing this college or this business? Follow the breadcrumbs. We should be Hansel and Gretel, really, shouldn't we?
I don't think I don't mind being a witch in a cottage in the woods, actually, but I don't really like eating children. Oh, just going to put that out there.
I couldn't eat a whole one.
No. Not when my house is made out of cookies and sweets. Forget it, ain't it? That's going to come first.
I was actually thinking of being the children and laying.
Oh, fine. Okay, I'm thinking I'm the witch. Okay, it's good. We're balancing each other out here. It's all good.
Yeah. And that's another great thing is I'd see when people have gone for 3 different readings at an event. And they get 3 different perspectives on the same issue, and they all dovetail together. But we give them different things, and I always say it's like, if you get 10 people seeing a car accident, you'll get 10 different witness statements.
Oh, absolutely. absolutely.
They end up with the full picture. They've got what they need.
Or there is an issue with that as well, that a person will go to, say, 3 different readers at an event, but they'll only take what they wanted to hear, right? Yeah. So which is fine. There's no right or wrong. Who am I to say no, you shouldn't do this, you should. I can only focus on myself. Trust me, that's the only capacity I've got, right? And I can only give guidance. But I do believe, this is where mindfulness, meditation, and having those Zen moments are the most important part of tuning into the intuitive, tuning into those synchronicities, tuning into the magic of those synchronicities as well, and appreciating them and saying thank you.
Yeah. And I always say meditation is not going to make you psychic. What it will do is give you the headspace to connect to spirit, whether that's your guides, whether that's a loved one, someone else's loved one, or just to your higher self, so you can have inspiration on something.
It's just a space for you to decompress from the go, go, go life.
Yeah.
Where you just sit, whether it's you're sitting or you just go. So I had a lady, and I said, oh, so I feel that you go walking as you're decompression. She went, yeah, that's right. I said, well, why are you walking so fast? Where are you going? She was going, yeah, I do walk really fast. I said, so what Spirit would like for you to do is do a little bit of a mindful walk, rather than just, right, I'm going for a walk, go for the walk, have to get back to, giving yourself that space to actually enjoy your environment and not, be on that fast. Just slow it down, know. And even if you just do that, you'll be so amazed of what you'll actually see, hear, feel, sense, and how that will make you feel more fulfilled as well. I feel personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of stuff in what we've talked about today that other people, I think, will find really, really useful, because
I hope so.
People don't generally understand how it works. And I think it's good for them to be able to see that, we're just as human as them, and that, we've had to find our way. We weren't just suddenly psychic and brilliant at it.
No, listen, I know I learn every day. Every reading I learn something new, not just about spirit, but about myself, know. So it's a continual learning path. You're never going to know everything. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, this week I had a client that wants to sack the entire spirit guides team that she's got.
Well, the question being raised there is, she really needs to think why she feels that way.
Yeah. But it was interesting seeing everyone's comments, because I asked the spiritual community.
Yeah.
And there were some interesting comments.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot just from that conversation. Because I always say to my students, I don't know everything. If I say something that you can't take or you don't resonate with, park it on the back burner. You'll either get it given in a different way, or that is just not your truth. I don't pretend to know everything. I'm still learning too.
Exactly. This is the thing that I found, especially with hypnotherapy as well. People expect that they'll come into a hypnotherapy session, whether it's to stop smoking, lose weight, change their eating habits, whatever, and I'm going to wave this magic wand and the weight's just going to fall off. Right? Or this is going to happen, and it's like, again, it's a two-way street. All right, you're coming to me, I can guide you, I can reinforce healthier behaviors or give you guidance, but you've still got to do the work.
Yeah.
You've still got to be mindful about, okay, so this is the kickstart, so now I need to take control of that and change my and build on the behaviors that have been embedded now and move forward with it. Don't expect after one hypnotherapy session that you're going to be a size 10 from an 18 to a 10 like that, and you're not going to have to put any effort in. That is not life. And I think that's a metaphor for the entire life cycle of every human being.
It really is.
The effort you put in is what you will get out. You know, it's like stuffing a tube full of goodness and effort and energy, and what will come out the other end is what you put into it. So
Totally.
you know, and that I find that quite interesting, at times frustrating, because you try to share that, and again, it's not what they want to hear. You know, it's not what I want to hear, just make it happen. You're like, I'm good, yeah, but
there's a limit to my greatness.
there's only so much I can do without you taking charge of your life.
Absolutely.
Your choices, how you decide what person you want to become. So yeah, that's challenging at times.
Yeah.
Disappointing as well. But they're on their journey.
They are.
And maybe just by having that one session or that one reading, a seed will be sown. Hopefully that will germinate into something more long-term, more kind of life affirming, whatever it's not for me to decide anyone's life journey.
No, that's very much the free will of the person you're reading for. We're just the conduit. There's the information. Do what you want with it.
Exactly. And you know, yeah, we're all so very different. We're all so very unique. You know, and there's space for everybody.
Yes, there is.
Right. So, you know, there's space for everybody, and I don't really want to get into detail about that, but you know, we're unique, and we'll always find people who resonate.
Yeah.
You know,
you need to be with your tribe. Doesn't matter what you're into, whether that's motorsports or doing what we do. You know, you need to be with like-minded people, because it makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, they give you the support. You know, they you know, again, this is a learning about what you're prepared to do, what you're prepared to give, and what you're prepared not to do or give. And decisions need to be made, and sometimes they're not the greatest decision at the time, but they're the most beneficial. Having people around you that keep you buoyant, that support you, that encourage you and say things, I'm so proud of you for doing that. That's incredible. You know, that kind of, rather than any negative Nellies coming along, and apologies for anyone who's called Nelly, if you're watching, but any negativity that comes from individuals, it's like, no, I don't need that. I've got enough of that in my own. I've got my own self-saboteur that tells me stuff like that. So have people around you that encourage you, that say they're proud of you, or just amazed at, you know, the crazy and wacky things that you do, you know, just because again, you're an inspiration to others. And don't forget that.
Yeah, it's very easy to lose sight of that, I think.
Absolutely.
Like you say, the voice in your head that wants to be negative and diss you and sabotage you and lead you astray. For me, that's the louder voice, but I've learned to listen to the whisper. That is my intuition. But not everyone has worked that out yet.
No. And again, you know, we're still learning about, well, I know I am still learning with that voice. When it sneaks in there and you're like, oh, I see what you're doing. No, I sound a bit, you know, talking to myself like that, but that's what helps me quieten that negative and go, no, I'm going to sit in my power. I am this person, and I am capable. And I'm not who you want me to be. I'm going to be who I want to be. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting journey.
It really is, and I can totally recommend it, but you know, it does have its frustrating times as well, but it's more fun to do it than to not do it.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing, Tracy. It has to be fun. You know, we need laughter. It's not all doom and gloom and this and that. You know, there's nothing wrong with having fun. And having laughter. Even, you know, when I give evenings of mediumship or demonstrations, I thought, you know, Spirit, come on, let's have a bit of laughter here. Let's not just all be like, oh, tears, which is nice, but let's have some upliftment. Like when I do, when I officiate funerals, I'm always like, I want like a nice ebb of laughter, moments of reflection, laughter, and just to remember that person in that way. And I think that's what life should be.
It should be, because they're not the sum total of their passing.
No,
That's
exactly.
just a tiny portion of it. Okay, it's an important bit.
Yeah,
But most people have got a sense of humour. Most people have
absolutely.
laughter, and
Yes.
so we should, focus and remember those.
Yeah. So
Mm.
just have fun. Don't let it overwhelm you where you feel pressured, and it's starting to drain you. No, you need to reevaluate what you're doing, um, because it should be buoyant. You should have a little spring in your step. You should feel,
Absolutely.
oh, and not feel, oh my goodness, this is too much. Because if it is too much, then step back a bit. There is no rush. There's no rush with this.
Oh.
You
Well,
know?
this has been really great fun, and I really think
Oh,
it's going to be
yeah.
helpful for a lot of people to kind of understand a bit more from the inside looking out rather
Yeah.
than from them. And hopefully we'll be able to educate.
On this. Yeah, this would be lovely. And obviously, if anyone's got any comments or anything constructive, please,
Please.
then please feel free to leave them.
Yeah, please do. We'd love to hear your thoughts, because
Yeah, exactly.
I think we need more of stuff like this, because people just don't understand how it works.
Yeah, more awareness, which I didn't have as a young child or teen or in my 20s. So I think this is incredible and amazing, just the amount of information and guidance out there if you need it or want it or seek it. So yeah, thank you for putting this together, Tracy.
That's okay. My pleasure.
All right then.